This is it. The last video I'll ever make on Doctor Who. 1963. Hello, it's Dr. Disco. Yeah, it's Dr. Disco. Outlook not good. Just blow everything up. Is an embarrassingly terrible solution. What? The f***? They just ended up skipping rock. Chibnall, Chibbles. You never learn. He didn't answer anything! Doctor Who! Chibnall! Chibnall! As the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who approaches, I thought it would be time to finish what I started. I've extensively covered the Whittaker-Chibnall era, especially as the show has reached new lows in terms of quality and viewership. The 60th has a brand new creative team with prolific British writer Russell T Davies showrunning. Davies may have worked on something you've seen before, mainly Doctor Who, when it was at its literal best. Everything we've seen thus far, from cast announcements, trailers, behind the scenes news, indicates not just a return to form for Doctor Who, but a quality so high, it's soaring through starlight, heading towards becoming a massive cultural phenomenon, even more than it once was. But, more importantly, I'm just thrilled and unbelievably excited. It's my most anticipated thing. I love it. With all of this in mind, I'm finished with YouTube. It's fitting, isn't it? I started YouTube with Chibnall, I'll end it with him. Now, if anybody has followed my previous coverage, then you probably know where I'm going with this review of Power of the Doctor. However, let me start by saying, it's not the worst. It may just be Chibnall's best as showrunner. It only took him 3 seasons, 5 years, but I think this is watchable. It was fun. Now, that doesn't mean it wasn't cheesy, contrived, and full of the horrible writing and poor production value we've come to expect, but what's new? I want to try and find something insightful about the episode, but I realise I've kind of said everything that I can about the flaws of the Chibnall era through the years. Like, it all boils down to the writing. Thus, I want to build upon a new idea, which is when I came across this TikTok review.
Did you see the telly last night? They'd put on a bit of fan fiction. It was called Power of the Doctor.
It's well thought out, quick, and presents this idea well. It's only 2 minutes and well worth your time, link in the description. What this review states, and what'll be the thesis of this video, is that the Power of the Doctor is fanfiction. Chibnall's finale has all the elements that we've come to know Doctor Who for. The titular character, the TARDIS, the companion that fell in love, the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Master, Earth under attack, all the iconic, overused shit. But, instead of using these elements to tell a satisfying story with characters and a point, you kind of just watch senseless things happen. It moves from scene to scene however Chibnall felt it needed to, progressing the narrative without rhyme or reason. Chibnall has all of the Doctor Who action figures from the toy box and is smashing them together like a bored 5-year-old. There are aspects that resemble past Doctor Who stories, but worse. And that's the brilliance of fanfiction. It doesn't need to make sense. You can use whatever characters or ideas you want. It's about regular, normal people having fun without consequences.
They'd let a normal person write it, you know, not a proper trained writer or any of that nonsense.
Why have a professional writer craft a narrative with magnificent attention to detail that might have stakes, heart, themes, or subtext? The cowards! Chibnall's here to have fun, baby! Let's boogie one last time, and the light went out. When you view Power of the Doctor through the lens of fan fiction, it makes way more sense. How it's derivative of previous Doctor Who ideas, the lack of subtlety or logic. I'm not shitting on fan fiction here, plenty of it is good, but I think it's fair to say we should hold television to a higher standard. Consequently, I put forward that the Power of the Doctor is just glorified fanfiction from the mind of Crazy Chris Chibs.
As cargo cult fan fiction amateur first draft attempts at doing something that was like Doctor Who but a bit off, this was the best one he's done.
Our episode begins with an exciting train heist that looks like shit, as it was almost definitely not storyboarded and needed way more pre-production. It goes for 7 minutes, and I can derive 3 convoluted reasons that it exists. Firstly, it's meant to be an action-packed opener to kick off this final episode, but it's too long, nothing scene to scene makes sense, the action is worse than generic, I don't care about these people, or this Rick and Morty space train, and, once again, it all looks like shit. Secondly, it reintroduces the Cybermasters and kicks off the main conflict the Doc is going to be pursuing throughout the episode. Starting with this mysterious child. Could this perhaps be the Timeless Child? No, it's not. In fact, this child turns out to be some random alien being of pure energy that is a meaningless plot device for the Master to fuel his planet cyber machine. Yes, this is going to get confusing. No, watching the episode doesn't make it less confusing, trust me. I've seen it several times. Now, perhaps this child, who is being exploited by the Master for their power, is here to parallel the Doctor's own experience under Chibnall's canon as a timeless child abused and experimented on for their abilities. The Doctor could reflect on their experiences and come to a new understanding by saving this child, unlike they were. You know, themes and character growth. Thirdly, and most importantly, Dan has a life-threatening experience that removes him from the story. This is a mistake. Dan would be better suited throughout the episode, and I think this happened because the actor had had enough. If Chibnall made this choice, then that's a baffling decision. Additionally, this idea is poorly executed. There's nothing unique about this life-threatening experience for Dan than any other he's been in. And we know Dan the Murderer was fitting in just fine 1 episode ago when he massacred those Sea Devils. But, you know, fanfiction. Dan had to go, so now he's gone. If I was to be positive for a few seconds, I'd say nothing egregious happens in this opener, and while it's too long, it's at least comparatively exciting to what we've come to expect. I don't mind some Dan shenanigans. In theory, I like the idea of Cybermen regenerating. Perhaps an interesting twist would be to have them cycle through all the models we've seen in the show's history. Plus, who doesn't love some nostalgia of the iconic red spacesuits? Every Doctor beforehand has done it. David Tennant even does it in Chris Chibnall's first episode. So, of course 13 has to, with nothing meaningful to add. To be fair though, it's not like Kill the Moon did much better. However, here it feels especially like a vague, uninspired notion at the past. Speaking of, the plot engine starts and we begin to get some strange occurrences and returning characters. The Master is back for a Doctor Who regeneration finale. like when it happened with David Tennant or Peter Capaldi. Except instead of a meaningful reason that links together careful planning and stakes, it's just derivative. Tegan and Ace are back for no good reason, besides the nostalgia of a vague notion to the past, and the writing is especially not helping here. Kate is also back, and she gets so little to do that I feel bad. Kate has always been a delight, however, here Chibnall has thrown away any growth she's made over the whole series. Once again, we have Kate showing the Doctor that something weird is happening with art pieces. Does this sound familiar? 50th anniversary. I do like that the Master has defaced these artworks, it's low-key pretty funny. Also, the Master uses his hypnosis, and this is an unironically good callback that helps propel this plot. I like this. It's presented well and is unsettling. Moving on. Dan leaves the fam for good, and while I like the idea of a companion leaving under regular circumstances, it feels like a squandered opportunity here. Additionally, Graham and Ryan made it out unscathed, and so will Yaz by the end of this episode. I don't think it's too much to ask for something more significant. But you can't have stakes or characters suffer consequences for their actions. Again, there's a second TARDIS, much like the Master's paradox machine. And a new planet in the sky, just like the end of time. Is this getting old yet? We could dig deeper into the writing and logic of the story, but why bother? This isn't worse than the Sea Devil's disaster, and Eve of the Daleks has better writing with more interesting flaws. I think an especially confusing aspect of the plot is that it takes place in the present day and 1916. However, there's no actual time travel logic here. Thus, I'm going to circumvent myself multiple paragraphs of pain by saying it doesn't make sense. There's no good reason for it to be set between two times, except for the Master to be Rasputin. What I find to be the most egregious element involves when the Daleks show up. Here we have a Dalek that's gone against orders, and the Doctor is beside themselves with shock that such a thing is possible.
I no longer believe in the Dalek mission.
Wow, that's a new one.
Except at the end of the literal first Dalek episode of the reboot, that weird set of episodes with Spider-Man in Manhattan, and distinctly missing was Capaldi's adventures with Rusty. The good Dalek. Arguably there's more, but you get the point. This is derivative fanfiction that hasn't made it past the first draft. In fact, I doubt actual Doctor Who fanfiction would make such a glaring mistake, such as forgetting prior interactions with Daleks. Us fans have pretty good memories. Oh, and for good measure, Vinda shows up from another dimension. Whoa. There isn't a good reason. Things just happen. The plot engine starts building up some steam, as it's clear the Master has a greater plan he's not letting the Doc or audience in on. I'll take this moment to express my enjoyment of Sasha as the Master. He's really good, and with better writing could be iconic. I hope Sasha is able to return to the show at a future date and really become something special. The Cybermen infiltrate unit through this miniature Cyberman. Tegan thought the Doc had mailed her, and conveniently didn't have a chance to bring it up during this prior meeting. The Master is released and teleports away, I'm guessing to start the 1916 phase of his plan. That's the only reasonable answer I have. It's never explained where this version of the Master goes. The Doctor meets with the good Dalek. Oh no, It's a trap. It turns out the Daleks have teamed up with the Cybermen and the Master to blow up a bunch of volcanoes. This entire notion feels exactly like something you'd see in fanfiction. All of the baddies have teamed up to blow up every volcano on Earth. Hoorah! The Doctor is captured and transported to Rasputin Master. We get that awesome Boney M song. The Master does a fun dance, just like John Sim. This Dalek Cyberman reaction is funny. The whole scene is fine. And who doesn't love some 80s music to kickstart some nostalgia? The first half of the episode concludes with the Master using a magic box machine to transform himself into someone else. Does anybody else remember the end of time? Yaz comes out confused, even though she just witnessed the exact same thing we did while on board the TARDIS. Quite hilariously, Yaz has shown up with no plan at all, like a fucking pillock. Or rather, a character that is written with reckless abandon and has no agency in this story.
Don't tell me this was Yaz's plan.
Just to show up.
No way.
She just...
I put on her clothes.
Who would do that? Okay, let's get this goddamn video moving. The following 20 minutes is a nostalgia-fueled mess. The plot continues as characters start resolving the conflict. However, that's not before a heaping mouthful of nostalgia is forced down your throat. The real Doc ends up in a spirit realm where they interact with past incarnations. Remember this guy? Remember this guy? Remember this guy? Remember this guy? Do you remember this guy? Yum 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 yum! Give me nostalgia! Importantly, while much of the plot is derivative of the 2005 reboot of Doctor Who, the returning characters are only from old Doctor Who. Mainly as all of the actors you'd want to get are too high profile to participate in this glorified fanfiction. Ace gets her iconic outfit and baseball bat literally pulled out of a random panel on the floor. She gets to do the one thing she's actually remembered for in the fandom, beating up a Dalek with a baseball bat. The Master gets this pretty cool mishmash of prior Doctor outfits, but once again, this is injecting that sweet, sweet nostalgia straight into the audience's veins. Graham returns. Who doesn't love Graham?
It's not like bigger things like this. Arnold Palmer.
Is it reasonable for him to show up on the inside of a volcano? No, it isn't. Any momentum the plot machine may have had has been lost in a deep bog of shit. Once again, we reach an especially egregious Chibnall cliche. While the real Doctor is missing, the companions end up with AI-constructed hologram doctors to walk them through the steps of resolving the plot. This is incredibly lazy. Why have the real Doctor incapacitated, forcing the companions to fend for themselves, when you're just gonna make up an excuse for the Doctor to be everywhere, all at once to explain everything? Chibnall did this in the previous finale, and he's done it again! The rest of the episode plays out exactly as you'd expect. The real and hologram doctors talk everyone through the conflict.
It's like the end of Flux, where there were like 50 doctors as well showing up everywhere. Chibnall needs the Doctor in every scene.
It's nice and easy.
It is nice and easy to cheat. Chibnall, cheater.
How else would she know how to rewire it?
She wrote it on her hand. Look at the fucking hand.
The Master gets defeated. They all fly the TARDIS together like one big happy fam, just like in Journey's End. They blow everything up, as is the standard Chibnall solution. The Doctor is grievously injured. The fam all get dropped off home. Yaz and the Doc have one final embrace, where they hardly even hug. I will say, strangely enough, this is where the episode differs from the fan fiction I've read on Tumblr. I'd say there's a lot more passion in those stories. It is funny that Chibnall couldn't even give Tumblr what they wanted. A relationship. All the companions meet up for group therapy. I wasn't expecting to see one of the original companions, Ian, and under a better writer, this idea could be fantastic. Really, this is Chibnall's best metaphor. One to all the fans who stuck it through Chibnall's era. Your only hope is group therapy. All the companions are able to talk about their adventures with the Doctor and how it's impacted their lives. Unless you're Graham, Ryan, Yaz or Dan, in which case you're pretty much the same person as you were when you met the Doctor. Finally, we get a nice, concise speech and Jodie Whittaker regenerates into David Tennant. The power of the Doctor is full of returning characters who have no reason to be there besides nostalgia. Its best plot points are derivative of previous adventures, its themes and subtext are non-existent, none of the characters grew in any meaningful way. When Doctor Who's showrunner was Russell T Davies, scenes happened for a meaningful reason, whether that be an emotional one or to further the plot. Under Stephen Moffat, scenes usually happened because it was clever or spectacular. Under Chibnall, scenes just happen, usually for no good reason. I know I've been pretty justifiably critical, but I will say this episode was pretty fun. For glorified fanfiction. I hope it's evident why this is the case.
That's because we don't really think modern Doctor Who counts. I'm sorry. None of us do.
No, that's what you made up.
We are just like, that's just nonsense. That's like fan fiction.
However, now it's time to address the overall Chibnall era. What I see as the biggest issue, besides the general low quality of the production and the basic failures of the writing, which I've talked to death.
But the level of scrutiny when you're running Doctor Who is something else, surely.
I'd not noticed it. No, it's was there any commentary? I never noticed it.
There's one overall problem that I just can't move on from. It overshadows everything. This was Chibnall's final chance to resolve any of the numerous plot points he set up. The unending spinning plates that he's unceremoniously shattered everywhere in his wake. Chibnall had 90 minutes to do anything! Resolve as much as he wanted. This was his chance to prove everyone wrong. That there was a meaningful answer in mind, and here it is! In his final movie-length episode. Well, clearly he didn't do any of that. He entirely ignored all of the plot threads he established, and probably for the better, we get a silly fanfiction romp instead. However, that's unacceptable. You can't tease out mysteries for multiple years and just never resolve any of them, not even a single one. This is Chibnall's ultimate failure, and these will all more than likely be indirectly retconned moving into the future, as Chibnall's era is remembered as a dark age for the show, and mostly ignored. But, just to get it out of my system, forever, here's the major unanswered questions Chibnall has left us with. Come on guys, you knew this was coming. Beyond the general premise of the Timeless Child, which we're just gonna have to move past, who's the fugitive Doctor? What happened to Gallifrey? I don't accept that it's just flaming ruins. who's the Doctor's creator? Which leads quite nicely into Flux, Belinvinda. What's going on there? Multiple dimensions? The Division. Who's this? The Doctor's creator? Has Chibnall seen Star Wars? Is the whole universe just fluxed? The Fob Watch. Don't get me started on the fucking Fob Watch. This being called time? How'd you even
escape from Gallifrey?
Magnificent attention to detail.
And we can keep going on and on. All of these never resolved. And you know what? Can we add a beautifully simple why? Just the cherry on top of this absolute dog's dinner is what did any of this utter nonsense achieve? Who is the 13th Doctor? This is such a basic question. Chris! Chibnall! Give us some fucking answers, mate! Come on! I've tried to find some meaning to tie all of this together thematically, with some wise words to end on. But I've said them all before. Doctor Who is a show that can and has survived dark times. It's been cancelled and rebooted. I spent my time covering the show, hoping to be able to praise it, absolutely hating it, waiting for Chibnall to deliver a story with some substance. Something I could emotionally connect to. Chibnall never did. Now at the end, we eagerly await a new, better beginning. I think this is the heart of it. I spent countless hours making videos over 5+ years. For what? I'm not trying to hide that I'm pretty much done with YouTube. I've continually made it a theme and foreshadowed that it's time for me to move on. Whether I want to go or not, my time is up. Here comes the obligatory me trying to link my personal struggles of creativity with the themes of a television show. I don't have any new answers to articulate that I haven't already considered. About change. About moving on. I guess it's like the Doctor says. We're all just stories, and they're all we've got in the end. Just try to make yours a good one. But why did I spend so much time watching a show that continually disappointed and at times made me furious? Well, because I love it, and you give the most attention to the things you care about, even when they let you down. Now as a new promising beginning is on the horizon, it's time for me to leave. Goodbye. But that's a little bit of a cop-out, isn't it? To spend all of that time whinging and complaining, and when I finally get the exact thing I want, peace! Fuck that! 2023 isn't over. I'm covering the 60th anniversary specials. I'm going to enjoy Russell T Davies' return and David Tennant's. I'm going to review them, whether I love, hate, or am indifferent. See you in November.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe.
All stories in the end. Just make it a good one, eh?